That's not good. All right. We're live. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and pull up the comments in the chat. First and foremost, welcome. My name is Logan Edmonds. I'm CEO of TTS. We'll go into that more, but let me introduce my co-host. John, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Hey, I'm John. I'm the CEO of TTS.
And Pacific Cloud Cyber. You're a busy guy, dude.
I do, and I got a consultant too. So a lot of work.
Yeah, it's all right. That's what we're here to talk about today, right? We're busy. Yeah. Both of us are in a business day in, day out. We definitely do more than 9 to 5. It never feels like there's enough hours in the day. I mean, that's a universal thing that I feel like. Do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. I need, I wish I had more time. I just feel like the week's gone, the day's gone the moment I sit down.
Well, today's presentation is all about that. Let me go ahead and share our slide deck. We're here today to talk about Copilot. Copilot and how can it make us money, right? Like, how can I turn this AI thing? And Copilot with Microsoft is definitely one of the bigger, if not the biggest name right now being thrown out there. How can I turn that and potentially make that into money? Before we go into that, let's go ahead and obviously for me, I also serve as the Chief Security Officer at TTS and Pacific Cloud Cyber. You can find me on LinkedIn as the Cyber Risk Guy. John, if people want to connect with you after this show today and after this presentation, can they find you on LinkedIn? Can they find you on Facebook? Uh-oh, I might have lost John. I think I lost John, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. I'm going to keep on chugging until we can get back. So what we're going to cover today, a whole lot. First off, what is Copilot and what can it do? What can it not do or not do well? How can Copilot get you into trouble if it's not executed correctly? And of course, the big question, how can it make you more profitable? The last one being, how do you get it, right? Like, those are the 5 questions we're going to be going over today in our presentation. So the basic premise when I was asking John earlier was very simple. Oh, he's back. Great.
Sorry.
It's okay. I figured your internet worked out. John, I just went over the agenda for the call and what we're going to be talking about. Okay. So we just brought the question up earlier. What if you could get an extra hour every day on your work schedule back? And then the question, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that would be so amazing. As I said, my day just seems to end before I know it. So I'm always trying to find ways to get more done.
Yeah, I mean, the list is endless, and I'm hoping that resonates with our audience as well. If I could get an hour of my day back in my pocket, that's 5 hours a week, 20 hours a month. With 20 extra hours in a month, the possibilities are endless of what I could get done around here in our office, right? Like, I would love that. And essentially, that is the promise that all these AI tools, especially Copilot, are making. Hey, yes, they are not the cheapest things in the world, but by making the strategic investment and setting them up correctly, you can get real time back on your calendar, which turns into more productivity, which turns into what? Time is money. Time turns into profit. That's this base currency we measure our entire business around. So what is Microsoft Copilot? John, this is a very boring definition that our users can read. But Microsoft Copilot, from your experience, you've played with it a little bit, as have I. What is Microsoft Copilot? How, in your mind, like what does it entail?
You know what? I think that depends on how much you've invested in the Microsoft platform. But at the very least, it's something that's going to help assist you get with writing or summarizing tasks. It's basically like your own private AI to work with your private work instead of just accessing the internet.
Yeah,
like ChatGPT does.
I love ChatGPT. I know I do, right? I really do. But ChatGPT has a very hard limitation. And what's that limitation? It can only work off the data that I give it inside that little web box, right? I have to go in there and tell it, go look at this website or copy and paste data into it. It's not at the point where it can intuitively anticipate my needs in a real meaningful way. I would say Copilot is at the very beginning of being able to do that. How? By integrating itself into the Microsoft ecosystem, specifically the suite of products that they have. Very few businesses don't have some kind of Microsoft product in their business. There's no doubt a few out there, but even when we use Gmail, I have seen businesses, oh, I have to have Excel, or, oh, hey, I'm using, Google Docs. Well, I need to have, what's the one that I think of? Whiteboard, right? Microsoft Whiteboard's a great one I've used. I've also seen Loop. There's a whole lot of tools and potential there, and all of those tools contain something that AI needs to function right. Large amounts of data. The more data you feed the AI, usually the better it is. Well, the way I see my life right now and my work schedule, John, I can categorize everything I do into basically 3 columns, with a few exceptions. There are repetitive tasks that I have to do day in, day out. They're not super time consuming, they're not super hard, but they're there and they eat time. There are the time consuming tasks, right? And you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Every time I have to write a long email to an email chain, right? Or I need to get on a meeting because we need 60 minutes to figure out what the heck it is we're doing. Or the list is endless. And then there's the ones that are both. They're repetitive and they're time consuming. Copilot can make a difference in all 3 of these columns, but in my opinion right now, the place it really shines is that middle column, right? It's repetitive and time consuming. That's how I get time back. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I agree. I think that, we all remember the days when we had to have someone take notes for us. I know organizing the email, organizing the information that's relevant to me and summarizing that. That is a lot of what we do as management, is trying to find out what we actually need to know about things that are going on throughout the day, or emails, messages, because we just get so much noise.
Yeah, it can be really time consuming, especially when it comes to communications. I'd say comms are probably the biggest thing I struggle with. Is when I'm trying to get in front of my comms, whether it's on Teams, email, notes from a meeting, whatever, right? Figure out what it is I'm actually supposed to do actions on. Just once I actually have the action list, it doesn't take me that long, right? Getting that action list put together, depending on how lengthy the correspondence is, that's a real time sink, historically speaking. Copilot does great at all the stuff we just talked about. It summarizes and it recaps meetings. It creates initial rough drafts. It gives you feedback on your writing. You can actually ask Copilot, hey, I wrote this email. What do you think about it, right? And it'll feedback you. It'll organize your inbox. It writes contextually aware content. It can pull data together from multiple data sources. So you can have 3 Word documents and an Excel spreadsheet you need to pull together into a single page executive summary. As long as you tell Copilot where the stuff's saved, it can go at it and get it. And I like this one personally. I've been using it in OneNote lately, John. It's really good at creating to-do lists. If you just need to know, hey, what is that I'm supposed to do today? It'll read your inbox, your Teams, your meeting notes, and go, you should think about doing these things, right? That's actually kind of helpful sometimes. You ever been in that state where you sit down for the morning and you're like, okay, what is it I'm supposed to do today again? Kind of just getting started can be a real challenge. You ever been there? Is it just me?
Absolutely. I think that it's something that we, again, with prioritizing what we're doing and in so many different data points, I think that for our business owners, we have so many different systems, especially as we move to the cloud, and we're just struggling to keep on track of all the information being thrown at us. And so having something that helps sort through that and integrates into something we already use every day, I think is a big benefit.
Well, we're talking high level, right? I'm assuming our audience is going to want a demonstration so they can actually see how this thing's supposed to work. I myself have procured a Copilot Pro license, and I'm going to show you a couple examples of how I use it at a daily level to really help me out. And I prepared some dummy data so we don't have to worry about giving away any of our goodies, right? So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hang on. Sorry. Outlook. Haha, found it. So on my screen, you're going to see a copy of my inbox right now. And you'll see I have a nice, Colin. We love Colin. Me and Colin put together this very long email chain with lots of correspondence. And if you look down, this is 6 emails. Previously, when I read this email and I'm going, hello, Logan, I'm glad we were aligned to deliver these steps. I'm like, what steps is Colin talking about? I answer 50 emails a day. How am I supposed to figure out what's in here? And I got to go back and read what I wrote, read what he wrote, figure out what this all is. Look at this. Thanks to Copilot, there's this nice little button here. Copilot's going to scan the email chain for me, looking for key points. And then after about 20 to 30 seconds, it'll put together this nice little paragraph statement. I asked Colin Hansen to prepare an analysis of current bottlenecks and propose actionable solutions to improve the company's operational efficiency for Q3. Colin identified. I requested weekly updates. You can just read that, right? I just saved myself. Honestly, I'm not the fastest reader when it comes to reading emails, so I'm just a little embarrassed to admit this. I probably saved myself about 8 minutes worth of work right there with the click of a button. That's just one example.
I would also say that it would be good to note that this call might be more useful on chains that you don't necessarily want to read, that you're CC'd on.
Oh, yes.
I would say that that's what I would use it for even more than something I'm responding back and forth. It's something, you know what, an entire chain has gone on while I'm on vacation, and I'd like to get caught up on what is happening so I can actually respond. Have anyone ever not read all of your emails in a thread, and then suddenly someone says, hey, I'd like your input on this? Well, you may have not read all of that, and you don't have the time to read all of that. So what I would use this for is to summarize that so I can give them a good statement. In fact, I might even use Copilot to help me write that statement based off of information in the email itself.
Yeah, I 100% agree. There's stuff I do. I'll get CC'd on a chain with 20 people sometimes, right? I'm not going to read that. There's literally 70 emails in there with Copilot. 30 seconds later, I have a general consensus of, hey, what is it that this is about? And then you can even ask Copilot. I didn't demonstrate that there because it's only 2 of us in the call. But I can ask Copilot, hey, Copilot, was anything directed at me directly, right? Was anybody referencing me? Because that's the one I'm going to care about reading carefully. Another thing that I've seen a lot, and see, I can't use this one. I picked the wrong one, is meeting recaps, right? Like meeting recaps are very, very handy for me because I personally have lots of calls on Teams. I know you do too as well, John. And sometimes I'll have this big, long hour meeting at the end of the day. I'll go home because it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, go do life, come back in the next day and go, we had this big call and I can't remember what it was I was actually supposed to do, right? Like, I don't know if has that ever happened to you or is it just a me issue?
I think that it's happened to all of us when we're busy.
So what Copilot can do, and this is what I was getting ready to pull up here, is it can actually summarize, if the call is being recorded and you come in the call late, you can actually ask it to recap the meeting before you ever get in. So you can know what was talked about before you walked in if you have to show up to a call late. But B, I'm going to show our audience here real quick. Let's see, share screen. I have way too many tabs open, John. I know better. But I can see here I had a call with Colin. Okay, me and Colin had a 5-minute call. I don't remember what it was about. All right, Copilot, recap the meeting for me. What exactly was this call about? Copilot looks at the transcript of the call, consolidates it, and puts it together for me so I can easily read. And it takes about 20 or 30 seconds. So since it's a live demo. But yeah, you can see here, Copilot boiled down that 5-minute call into 3 bullet points for me. I now know what the call was about. I know what I need to do. And I can even ask Copilot if the call is longer. Copilot, what are just the action items? Right? What is it we actually said we were going to do? Because maybe at the end of the day, most of the calls I take, that's the stuff I care about. What did I say I was going to do after the call?
Of course. And this is even just a fraction of the capabilities of what it has, because this is something that is meant to work in your business case. So, there's so much that's built even within this one thing. Like, for instance, if you're in sales, and you want to know how your team's doing on those sales calls, what went wrong, having a summary of that information of meetings you didn't attend, but you were in a way like CC'd on, then getting the summary of that and getting that data all sent to you in an email, stuff like that, it's huge.
I've had to step in, I know you have too, midway through a project and take over as project manager. And you're trying to figure out where the heck is this project at? Where is everybody on things, right? That's a lot. And traditionally what I would have had to do is call a bunch of people, have 30-minute calls with them to figure out where are you at on stuff so I can put them on the project board properly or put them in an Excel sheet or however we're tracking the project. Well, Copilot has this handy, I'm just giving you another example here. I can go into all those Teams calls like you said, right? I can have them summarize the calls. I can have them actually look through all the data points of the emails that I've been involved with because I've been CC'd on. Or I can go into data points. Maybe they've written documentation. But with Copilot, I can pull all this random data together with about a 20 minutes worth of work and get a good summary of, okay, this is where we're at. I now feel confident enough to start taking over the project and making sure that we can correct whoever needs to be correct here. Previously, when I did that, that would take me days. That would literally take me days sometimes. Another one I think is kind of helpful. I don't know about you, John, but I get to end up being in a lot of vendor calls. Every business under the sun has multiple vendors. You go to the sales pitch, you hear what they tell you, and what the product is supposed to be able to do. You get the contract and you sign it because you want the cool tool. And then you're like, oh, what did I just sign? What did I actually need in this project, this thing, right? What did they tell me it does versus what I'm getting out of it? That was a hard thing for me to track sometimes. I had to go off my gut. For me personally, however, now not only can I recap the meeting I had with the sales proposal, I can go ahead and have Copilot pull down the terms and conditions, look through it and tell me, okay, what is this thing that I'm getting ready to agree to a 3-year term on, right? Because previously that involved me reading a 40-page document. I'm not going to do that. Copilot can boil that down to a couple paragraphs for me and just give me an extra level of check saying, hey, these are things you need to be aware of. I can even summarize comparisons. Renewing contracts, that kind of stinks sometimes because there's always new language in there. I can stick them both in Copilot. Copilot, what's different between these two? And it'll summarize that for me.
It's very helpful.
So a big point I want to make, and I skipped it because we dove right into the action items, but a lot of people have this misunderstanding about AI in general, that AI is going to dramatically replace everyone's job. There is some industries with a bit of exposure. I'm not going to lie. Copywriters are one that I know right now are having a lot of time with. There's some stuff like paralegals, but by and large, AI is not going to replace people. And Copilot's no exception to that. Copilot enhances people, in my humble opinion. That's what it's really geared towards. It's meant to make people more efficient with their time, so they're doing the things and prioritizing their time around the things that humans are best suited to do. So, and give you example of things that Copilot does not do. Well, first off, Copilot's actively being developed by Microsoft right now. It's going to improve. I don't think there's any controversy there. Currently, as Copilot stands right now, and this is my direct experience, there are a few things that it could stand to use some improvement on or be a better fine-tuned. Obviously, the usability of Copilot varies depending on the application you're using. Teams, for example, is very Copilot heavy. If you're using Teams, you can get a lot out of it. Excel has a lot of Copilot uses, but there's some things in Excel Copilot just doesn't do right now. I tried to have Copilot, for example, write me a custom dashboard formula, so I didn't have to go and figure out all the Excel formulas and paste them in and do all that stuff. It was able to help me figure out the formulas, right? Tweak them. It wasn't able to write the dashboard for me by itself. Not yet. I do think that's coming. Anything that's a non-sequential or irregular task as well, Copilot can struggle on. What do I mean by that? I mean, you ask it to do random things that don't have any rhyme or reason, or it can get easily confused. That's where you're going to find a lot of hallucination, in my opinion. If you tell it, hey, not giving enough data, go do something for me, it'll do one of two things. It'll search as much as possible to find the data it needs, or if it can't find it, it'll occasionally make stuff up. It does happen. That's a very well-known bug. I still have not gotten it down. I know they advertise it can be done. One of the things I've struggled with is a bit of hit or miss of whether or not Copilot can actually use my style of writing in emails. Sometimes it does tend to default a little towards Webster's dictionary, but I do think that's going to be fixed down the road if it's not already actively being worked on. And the last thing, this is really important. Read what Copilot writes you. I would strongly encourage our audience, if you have Copilot write you material or data, you need to put a human review on it. Copilot is great. I write documents and reports all the time with it. I still need to review it because that is my final deliverable to the customer. However, when it comes to writing rough drafts or getting through writer's block or just getting me to a point where I have a framework to work off of, a great example of this, John, I write reports a lot for our job. We do a lot of cybersecurity reports. I decided one day I didn't like the template we were using and I wanted to try a new one. Normally writing a new template report, that's a big project. That's going to take me a solid work day or two to work out. I was able to give Copilot roughly what I wanted on Word, and Copilot was able to write out the outline of what I wanted, polish up descriptions, even put some branding in there. Again, hours and hours of manual work done like that. But you need to know the limitations of where a human needs to get involved. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately want to say that some of what we're showing today really is just Copilot out of the box. There is so much as you get more in the ecosystem to improve that makes many of those things start to slide away, depending on the size of your organization and usage, where ultimately you're kind of training your own language model. But out of the box, it has some limitations. Like everything else, you have to have things slowly be set up.
It's also definitely still a work in progress in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is it's good enough to use now, but there is AI is a relatively new thing. There's still a lot of refinement just being done in the industry as a whole. And if how you execute Copilot, for example, in your organization, as you just alluded to, directly impacts the quality and the safety of your organization and its experience with Copilot. Copilot, if not managed properly, can get your business in trouble. It can absolutely cause operational issues, and it can honestly hurt your brand. One of the things that it has security concerns, as you already know, one of the big ones that is rolled back, fortunately, but AI, okay, I think I had myself, sorry. There are some drawbacks to AI, right? It can be biased depending on the data you feed it. Sometimes it'll come to a conclusion you won't like. You need to be careful what kind of data you feed it. And for me, specifically, the last two are something that I'm very much concerned about. I can see AI being a great boon, and generative AI specifically like Copilot being a great boon. But I can also see how by giving my employees all these tools, it can reduce their desire to critically think from time to time, right? I don't want to think about this. Let the AI figure it out. Don't go there, right? You need to have some governance. Your employees still need to be able to operate with Copilot and have critical thinking skills. But also be careful what you feed the bot. Great example of this. Sorry, I tried to show that one. Great example of this. If you have things that are under confidentiality and your agreements do not allow for you to work with third-party vendors on that, if you're in a regulated space like government tech or something like that, you're going to have some controls around what your employees are allowed to feed the robot. Or that data can absolutely fall out of your control. You can be in contractual violation, or even worse. We have seen stories where everything's a little bit behind. Back when ChatGPT came out, right? Everyone loved to play with ChatGPT. I love to play with ChatGPT. What did the hackers start targeting, trying to break into? ChatGPT accounts. Why? Because they figured out that the right commands, they could make it regurgitate everything that was ever fed. And that had a lot of goodies in there for that. So there are some management concerns here that it needs to be set up properly. It needs to be governed properly. It can be abused. But that being said, we're not all doom and gloom. We really do feel like it can make your business more profitable and it can make your business more productive, which is the big takeaway of today's presentation, right? More time equals more productivity equals more profitability. I just spoke a lot, John. Anything to add to what I just said?
No, I mean, again, a lot of these things really just depend on your maturity, because many of them can be addressed. It just depends on how much security you set in place. Not to get too technical, but there is controls. There is a lot of different things you can do, but it just doesn't come that way out of the box. And that's the important piece.
I think a lot of people look at AI and they're like, this is just something I can whip out and put in there and it's going to revolutionize my organization by night. And not everyone, but there are some people out there that think that. AI is like any other tool. It needs to be strategically implemented in your organization in a way that makes sense for you, that does have some controls around it, and that you can actually properly manage, right? You don't want this thing. I could absolutely see a world where somebody drops a lot of money getting Copilot in the organization and they don't have it set up. They don't have it optimized. It's like, go figure it out, employees. And either A, it just whimpers out because people don't understand what they're using, or it hasn't been made as efficient as possible, and it kind of just dies off because its usability is not there. Or even worse, B, it's abused somehow, right? Generative AI, if it's not managed properly, can absolutely be abused. I do not want, for example, in our organization, John, we answer a lot of tickets. I do not want my techs generating auto replies to all of our tickets using AI is a great example of that, right? Somebody human needs to read that and make sure that the other person's being taken care of. That's just one example of how I can see it being used.
I think you got to think of AI right now in its current stage as a little bit of your personal assistant that has a certain level of grammatical knowledge and is going to help you along with some tasks that you would find possibly tedious. But it's not perfect. Like everyone, like any other employee, you should review their work.
Yeah, and it's going to improve. I don't doubt that. It's going to improve. It's going to get better. But I think that's a great way to frame it. Treat your generative AI project like you would an employee, right? Trust but verify, have some controls in place to make sure that it's outputting the quality that you want, and have a plan to adjust, right? Like any employee, if an employee's not outputting to the level I want, something's got to change. And you can have plans and build policies that can actually govern that and show you the roadmap of how to approach that. A Copilot can make you a lot of money and productivity in all kinds of ways. I struggle with writer's block often. When I sit down, I have to like write out a proposal or a news pitch deck or something that is, very creative. Sometimes the hardest part is getting started. One of the things that I found Copilot's been amazing for me on, just getting me started, building me out that framework, right? That rough draft that now I can work off of and really get going. Copilot's also amazing at consolidating information, as we talked about. It can tell me. So if you're like me, I get about 60 emails every night. It feels like people wait till I'm gone to email me. And when I get in the morning, I really get over not like I used to spend like 45 minutes of every day in the beginning of the morning just checking my email and responding. But what I found is there's 2 or 3 emails in there that I really need to get back with. The rest can wait. One of the great things I've discovered about Copilot, it can tell me what 3 emails, like these 3 people emailed you, respond back to them first, the rest can wait, right? Copilot's great for that. Now I spend 10 minutes every morning checking my email with Copilot, and then I move on. I come back to the rest later in the day as time makes sense. Copilot also is really good if I need to spot check my schedule. Someone asks me what's your availability in a couple weeks, I can just ask Copilot. It'll look at my calendar, and actually, if you have the right settings turned on, it'll schedule stuff for me too. It'll make the Teams event. It'll make the calendar invite. It's pretty cool. And the big one that I think if you're in finance, that could be super helpful, John, is I have not here. You ever had to review an Excel spreadsheet and try to pull data trends out of it? Get a big CSV file? Holy guacamole, man. That's a time sink and a half. I can ask Copilot to pick out trends, data points, all kinds of stuff. Where previously, I would have sat there for 20 minutes trying to figure out a formula that would have given me what I needed. And that's a huge one back in my pocket.
It is. I mean, I don't know. Many people here really like numbers. I'm one of those people that can enjoy numbers, but I think that I'm looking at ways to help analyze these things faster. I think the key really thing is you take this information, and we have limits to our brain, in how many calculations we can make. To be able to do a lot of calculations or analyze data without having to know all those Excel formulas could be a big benefit to business owners and to people that may not have those mathematical skills or analytical data analysis.
I would say the fact that Copilot has appeal for you and me, one of the things that I think people notice when they work with us, we have 2 very distinct personality types. You're very much one that loves to look at the data, understand the data, and work with it, whereas I'm very much bottom line it for me, summarize it into 2 sentences to left. Let me get on my life. Copilot appeals to both of us for different reasons, right? Like both have use cases. And that's kind of the thing that always set this aside for me. I was like, wow, this really it's like a Swiss Army knife in a lot of ways. No matter what kind of employee you are, no matter what kind of business owner you are, no matter what kind of team you have, there is a use case for Copilot, in my opinion, that can directly correlate to huge gains in productivity. It's all about finding the right synergy for your organization and where that best bang for the buck in Copilot suite really exists. And that's where I'm getting at with this next slide, John. I do not recommend going out and buying a Copilot licenses and just winging it. If you do, the learning curve is a bit steep. I'm not saying you can't do it, but it's gonna be a while before you see any kind of ROI. And more importantly, Copilot is one of those things that the better you plan for it, the more ROI you get, right? If you're strategic about how you implement it and set it up to get the best bang for your buck, you can get off to the races way quicker and using it in a meaningful way than if you just throw it in out of the box. One of the things that we do here at TTS, as you know, John, is we strategize with Microsoft ecosystem setup, and we help people optimize their Microsoft environments to get that ROI out of it, right? Copilot's no exception to that rule. We are offering to our audience a free 15-minute session just to talk about Copilot, talk about the Microsoft environment for the organization, and see if this is a good fit for you. There's no strings attached, no obligation. By scanning this QR code or going down at the bottom where it says cyber.tabernacle.tech/cyber strategy session, you can book an appointment on our calendar, get on the books. And yeah, I would say I think we're loading the deck a little bit. I think Copilot's a good fit for about 90% of organizations right now, but you want to make sure. Anything to add?
No, I mean, there's so much within this thing. We're only scratching the surface, but if this is an interest, this is a huge thing for business owners to get all of these things connected, and the things they already use. So we're happy to help you guys optimize and work within this platform.
A couple of final thoughts from my side that come to mind as well. Every business has an administrative workload, an administrative debt it has to meet. It's a universal truth. And typically in the past, we're always looking to cut down that debt while keeping costs controlled, right? Like that's just the thing that we all look for. Copilot doesn't replace people, but if it's optimized correctly, you can get more out of individual people, especially as it relates to administrative tasks. One person can do that much more. And that goes a long ways towards profitability as you grow and scale. You can have one person take on more without overstraining them and be that success. And as you scale, that's the goal, right? Be more and more profitable. Administrative work, that's an easy place to start. That was one thought I meant to bring up towards the middle of the slide deck. I totally forgot. Anything to add to that statement?
I 100% agree. I mean, you're going to be testing this. You're going to be figuring out how it works for your business and your own use case. And I think, there's a lot of places where this leads to, but really what I think separates Copilot from a lot of other ones is the fact that you're starting to utilize your own data in a secure, connected space. And that's ultimately what we want. Is we're not wanting generic data. We're wanting to do the things that we care about in our actual work.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The data is all there. If you're like us, you have years of Microsoft data just sitting in the cloud right now, or in Word or Excel. It's a very low. There's still some planning and strategy needs to happen here. But in terms of the overhead, like the lift to get there, to use that data in a meaningful way, Copilot has one of the most streamlined roads to success that I've seen in the market to this point. There's a lot of AI tools out there. Very few, if any, have a road as clearly defined as Copilot does. Okay, that's all for us, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can either email us, reach out. We have our website in the chat below. If you go to tabernacle.tech, you can either book that AI free strategy session call or just send us a ping. Comment on the thread. We're going to have this posted for the next week. You can find that at tabernacle.tech/replay. Again, that's tabernacle.tech/replay. So if you know someone who would be interested in checking this out but wasn't able to attend, we'll be sending out a blast to let them know they can go there to watch it for the next week or so. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye.